Good morning, Memorial. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I have homework for you. Why do we celebrate Cinco de Mayo? What is the reason why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo? They am wearing my. They used to call it the Aztec calendar. They don't want to call it that anymore. They want to call it the rock of the sun, because it's big rock. Each one of the characters that you see has a different explanation, and believe me, scientists and anthropologists have studied this for years or years and years. I'd say centuries, and they keep discovering things about the La Piedra del Sol. That's how they call it right now. If you ever had the chance to go to Mexico City, don't miss the opportunity to see it in person. It's just amazing. It's just something that how you ask yourself the same question many times. How they did this and what does it mean? And even though you have people over there beautiful, I mean amazing how these people can explain to you every single one of the characters so far. They also tell you that many things that they haven't discovered yet, and they're working on it. One more thing, let me tell you: if you have Mexican money, if you have 18 cents, you can make 18 cents with the 10 cents. With the 10 cents, una moneda de 10 centavos, una de 5 y una de, y tres de 3, puedes hacer la piedra del sol. Es con 18 centavos. Cada uno de los dibujos es una de los aros que tiene así la piedra del sol. Yo tengo una gigantesca que compré, casi que me regalaron de madera. Algún día se las enseñaré, ¿ok? O a lo mejor después se las enseño. Voy a leer, we're going to start, I'm sorry, I switched to Spanish. We're going to start reading a book. It's called La Mariposa, The Butterfly, by an author, Francisco Jimenez. I met this guy when he first wrote this book. I went to a conference. It was called what they call NAVE Conference, National Association of Bilingual Educators. This was back when I was teaching third grade at Memorial. I was lucky enough that I never taught any other school, only Memorial. And he even, dedicated to me. He says here, para José, muchos éxitos para usted y sus estudiantes, Francisco Jiménez. He says, por José, a lot of success for your students and yourself, Francisco Jiménez, in 2007. So, this is going to give you, brief story of what the book is about, because it's very important in a school like ours that we promote biliteracy, bilanguage, and biculturalism. We are a dual language school, and those are our main goals. That all our students can come out of the elementary school with learning two languages, learning and speaking two languages, somehow learn about the two cultures. So that's bicultural, and of course biliteracy, meaning learning and academically in both languages. I'm going to read this part. In his first years of school, Francisco understands little of what his teacher says, but he's drawn to the silent, slow-moving caterpillar in the yard next to his desk. He knows caterpillars turn into butterflies, but just how they do it. How long does it take? To find out, he studies the words in the butterfly book so many times that he can close his eyes and see the black letters, but he still can understand their meaning. Illustrated with paintings as deep as rich as the wings of a butterfly, this honest, unsentimental account of a school child's struggle to learn language reveals how powerfully our imagination sustains us. Both poignant and true, La Mariposa makes a sub plea for tolerance in our homes, communities, and our school. Houston is one of the cities that tolerates a lot of cultures. It's one of the most multicultural cities in the whole United States. We are lucky to live here. We see people from everywhere, and we respect them. We learn about their cultures, and they learn from us. So that's the important part: to learn and to understand that we're not in this world alone. To learn and to understand that the more culture we know, the more we know about other people, about other languages, the better we are going to be, because we're going to be able to communicate with everybody. Okay, let's read it. Is other part. And look how he dedicated this to the teachers. Now that we have the week appreciation week, teacher appreciation week. To my teachers, whose faith in my ability and guidance helped me break the migrant circuit. Many of us were migrant. Many migrant means we were from another country and we're now in the United States. We need to thank people. We need to turn that opportunity and turn it into something new, into a new world. To the people I will always remember, my teachers, your words and inspiration will continue to make a difference. Si se puede. Okay, let's start. Early Monday morning, Francisco got up to get ready. Quickly, he put on his overalls, which he hated because he thought the suspenders made him look foolish. But he found the soft, bright flannel shirt Mama had just bought at the Goodwill store. Then he put on his favorite cap. Quítatela en la clase, his older brother. Roberto warned him, for he had been to school before, and he knew it was bad manners to wear a hat in class. Gracias, Francisco told him, taking it off. But after his breakfast and just before heading out, he decided to wear the cap. Papa always wore one, and how could Francisco feel dressed for first grade without it? He will remember to take it off in class. Sorry. This is the first picture. Look, all those really beautiful paintings. Adios, mamá, Francisco and Roberto called as they headed out to catch the school bus. Adios, hijos, she answered. Que Dios los bendiga. Papa had already left to him to thin letters, the only word he could find in late January. Mama stayed home to take care of little Jose and to set out their new home in Kansas City. Beautiful fields. When the school bus arrived, Francisco took the window seat next to his brother so that he could watch the rows of lettuce and cauliflower go whizzing by. He thought the first looked like giant legs running alongside. The bus kept stopping to pick up kids, and with each stop, the noise inside grew louder. Some kids were yelling at the top of their lungs. Francisco did not know what they were saying because he could speak only Spanish, and they were all speaking English. He was getting a headache. Roberto had his eye closed and was frowning. Francisco did not disturb him. He figured his brother was getting a headache too. When they got to school, Roberto walked Francisco to the principal's office. Mr. Sims, the principal, was a tall, red-headed man who listened patiently to Roberto. My little brother, Roberto said, using the little English he knew. He's in primer grado. Mr. Sims walked Francisco to the first grade classroom, and as soon as he saw the bright electric light, shiny wood floor, and the warm heater in the corner, Francisco liked the room. It was not all alike his family green army tent with its hard dirt floor. Mr. Sims introduced Francisco to his teacher, Mrs. Calapino, who smiled and repeated his name, Francisco. It was the only word Francisco understood the whole time she and the principal talked. They repeated each time they glanced at him. After Mr. Sims left, she showed Francisco to his desk, and at the end of the row of desks closest to the windows, there were no other kids in the room. Francisco sat at his desk and ran his hand over his wooden top. It was full of scratches and dark ink spots. He lifted the top, and inside were a box of crayons, a yellow ruler, and a thick pencil. Looking around the room, he saw under the window, right next to his desk, a caterpillar in a large yard. It was yellowish green with black bands, and it moved very slowly without making any sound. Now it's time to this caterpillar, by the way. I have found some of my, on my patio, I have a milkweed plant that a neighbor gave me, and it's amazing. They eat the whole thing. They don't kill the plant. They just eat the leaf and the flowers and everything. You see only little things, branches, but it's their life. I'm not going to kill them, and I know the plant's going to survive because it's part of it, the life cycle. We all know that, so I let them go. But sometimes I'm going to see them like butterflies, so that's the beautiful part of the whole thing. Just as Francisco was about to reach into the yard to gently touch the caterpillar, the bell rang. Kids lined up outside the classroom doorway, and they walked in quietly and took their seats. Some of them looked at Francisco and giggled. They made him nervous. He turned his head away from them and looked at the caterpillar in the yard. He did this every time someone looked at him. Mrs. Calapino started speaking to the class, and Francisco did not understand a word she said. The more she spoke, the more Francisco wanted to be at home. He tried to pay attention because he wanted to understand. But by the end of the day, he got very tired of hearing Mrs. Calapino talk because the sounds still made no sense to him. He got a bad headache, and that night, when he went to bed, he heard her voice in his head. For days, Francisco tried to listen, but he always went home with a bad headache until he learned a way out. When his head began to hurt from trying to understand, he let his mind wander. Sometimes he imagined himself flying out of the classroom and over the fields where Papa worked. See, he let his imagination go back. He is like flying over the fields where his dad is working. But it's just his imagination. Hola, Papa, he would say, landing next to him. But Francisco was careful not to let the teacher catch him thinking about flying. He would look at the teacher and pretend he was listening. Papa had told him, and it was disrespectful not to pay attention, especially to grown-ups. When the teacher spoke the children's name, though, Francisco would listen. He liked their sound. Molly sounds like mole in Spanish, and Pat sounds like pato. The one he learned first was Curtis, because Curtis was the biggest and most popular kid in the class. He was always choosing captain when the kids formed teams. Francisco was the smallest kid in the class. He did not know English, so he was chosen last. Francisco liked Arthur better. Arthur was one of the boys who knew a little Spanish. During recess, they would play on the swings, and Francisco would pretend to be a Mexican movie star, like Jorge Negrete or Pedro Infante, riding a horse and singing the corridos he heard on the car radio. He thought the songs to Arthur as they swung back and forth, going as high as they could. But if Miss Escalapino heard them speaking Spanish, she would say no with her whole body. Her head turned left and right 100 times a second, and her index fingers moved from side to side as fast as a windshield wiper. English, English, she repeated. Arthur avoided Francisco whenever she was around. See, I don't want them to speak Spanish. That happened to many people, but fortunately now it's not happening. And it's not going to happen in the school because the school is a dual language school. Often during recess, Francisco stayed with the caterpillar. Sometimes it was hard to spot him because he blended in with the green leaf and twigs. Every day, Francisco brought him leaves from the pepper trees that grew on the playground. Just in front of the caterpillar, lying on top of the cabinet, was a picture book of caterpillars and butterflies. Francisco liked to look through it, page by page, studying all the pictures and running his finger lightly over the caterpillars and the bright wings of the butterflies and the many patterns on them. He knew caterpillars turn into butterflies because Roberto had told him, but just how did they do it? How long did it take? The word written underneath each picture in big black letters could tell him. He knew, so he tried to figure them out by looking at the pictures. He did this so many times he could close his eyes and see the words, but he still could not understand what they meant. Okay, see, again, now here we see the struggles of a kid who is learning Spanish in a new culture, in a new school, in a new everything for him, and how he adapt to it. Okay, that would happen to many of us. It happened to me. I'm from another country as well. But, like at the beginning, it says, si se puede. And we're going to see later on, when we keep reading the book, how the whole thing happened. So far, so good. Hey, remember, thank your teachers. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Listen to your parents. Keep the social distancing. We're not out of this yet. And together we're going to do it. Like they say, si se puede. I miss you guys. I wish I can see you in person, but that's okay. See you virtually. In the meantime, virtual hug. See you later.